Alrighty, so we got the Twitter files part 2, whatever you want to call it. This time, instead of being a tweet thread by Matt Taibbi, this one was by Barry Weiss. I think that what Barry Weiss put out is probably more interesting content, more interesting secrets as far as I'm concerned. It was about shadow banning and the trends blacklist that we've heard about before. I mean, hell, the idea of shadow banning on Twitter, I think I first heard about was probably like 2014, 2015 at the latest. And so finally, Twitter has officially confirmed, through Barry Weiss, through the documents that Elon released to her and the screenshots and whatnot, that yes, shadow banning was real. Yes, people are shadow banned. In fact, Musk even said that he's going to update Twitter so that you can see on your profile if you're shadow banned or not. Which I guess means that Elon plans on continuing to shadow ban people, but he will give people some sort of track so that they can appeal their shadow ban. And so who was shadow banned? Well, it's the usual suspects. Libs of TikTok is a name that's getting floated a lot, a big culture warrior, someone who makes leftist cultural values look not so good by just posting up what libs put on TikTok voluntarily. It was skeptics of the Church of the Jab and of the Church of the Mask. People like Jay Bhattacharya, who was, I think, a Stanford professor. He's a doctor, a professor at a very prestigious university in the United States. And yet not even he, was permitted to criticize the Wu flu lockdown regime. Again, just like with the previous disclosures in the Twitter files that were published by Matt Taibbi, none of this should come as a surprise. This is what we've all said that Twitter's been doing for years. And, who would this be news to? Well, I guess it would be news to the libs. But are the libs going to care? No. The libs don't care. In fact, now that it's been exposed that this was happening, what they called a conspiracy theory before, now they're just saying, well, yeah, it was true. Everyone knew it was true. And so it's old news. And it was a good thing. And it should keep happening. And this is why we got to get rid of Elon Musk, because he's not banning the COVID disinformation people. He's not banning enough of the culture warriors. He's allowing the anti-wokesters to run rabid. That's why the New York Times is publishing stories about how hate speech is on the rise on Twitter. And Musk, I think, in a cringy way, retorted by saying, actually, hate speech is down. Like you're accepting the premise of their argument. Hate speech means anything that disagrees with the current woke orthodoxy. Hate speech is anything that is politically incorrect. We've known this for over a decade. When Mitt Romney was labeled, the second coming of Adolf Hitler, you didn't figure that out. Anyone who's still playing the game and trying to act like, oh no, I'm not a real racist. Democrats are the real racists. So yeah, again, I'm glad that the Twitter files are being released. I'm in no way trying to castigate Elon for releasing this. I'm glad he did. I'm glad that we have it now for the historical record. Decades from now, when people are less heated about this, I think that the history books, hopefully, will include this and will point in this, how social media was manipulated to suppress certain viewpoints at this point in American history. And Elon confirmed, he was replying to Ian Miles Chunkus, one of the most disgusting human beings on the planet. Just looking at him, and then you take into account his personality and the things that he's done. Having people swatted, the is beyond contempt. But nevertheless, he asked Elon a good question. He asked him directly, hey, have political candidates, been shadow banned under this, this blacklist regime that Barry Weiss was reporting about? And Elon said unabashedly, yes. So not only were they targeting people with dissident political viewpoints, anyone who was running for public office that did not conform to the Church of Woke was suppressed and, in some cases, silenced by the authorities at Twitter.com. And Twitter, I think it's noteworthy, has been the least censorious of all the major social media platforms. So anything you see that was going on at Twitter, all that and more, all that and worse things were going on with Facebook and Instagram. Maybe TikTok isn't as bad because, TikTok is Chinese, which is why they want to shut it down. It's not it's not controlled by the CIA and the FBI in the way that, Twitter was, and the way that Facebook and all these other places are. TikTok is not owned by intelligence, at least not American intelligence. It's owned by Chinese intelligence, but I'm much less afraid of Chinese intelligence. What are the Chinese going to do to me? I'm just some random guy in America. Chinese don't care about what I'm saying. They don't care that I'm disagreeing with the federal government. I'd much rather have the Chinese reading all of my DMs than some CIA spook embedded at Twitter. And so you have this clown, James Baker, who is part of the revolving door that you have in D.C., where these government bureaucrats, in this case, I believe Baker was an FBI guy. He was involved with Klein Smith and I guess the whole Alpha Bank thing, which was a part of Russiagate. So he's a Russiagate lawyer. So he's already not a credible human being. He leaves the FBI. Where does he go? He goes to work at Twitter as their general counsel, I believe, or something. Maybe that was Vajaya's title. I can't remember. But he was a lawyer for Twitter, high-ranking lawyer. And he was just fired by Elon because apparently he was trying to go in and censor the Twitter files, which is hilarious. Elon was saying, hey, we need to release these things. And then this FBI spook, Russiagator, was going in and censoring the files that were to be sent to Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss. So do you think that this guy is the only spook at Twitter? No, of course. This is the way the revolving door works. You have all of these people who go and work for the federal government and then get embedded in corporate America, and you have people from corporate America who then get embedded in the federal government. They're one and the same. That's why we have a Secretary of Defense who was a board member of Raytheon, the people who make the bombs. The military-industrial complex is the most egregious example of the revolving door. And so I'm glad that it's the most famous, but people sometimes, I think, they think of the military-industrial complex in a vacuum, and they don't realize that that's how all of the government works, and that's how all of the private sector works. Every business that is beyond a certain size, that has a certain, I don't know if you would say GDP, a certain revenues, companies of a certain size, net worth, whatever. I keep forgetting the market cap. That's the term. That's the term I'm looking for. Companies of a certain market cap, of a certain valuation, they just become de facto appendages of the federal state. Because at a certain point, you can't grow your business any bigger and maintain that size without being a part of the system. That's what Bill Gates learned. Back in the 80s and 90s, Bill Gates was going nuts, growing his company on his own, and he was, not a nice guy to begin with. I don't want to lionize Bill Gates like joining the, the WEF crowd. Bill Gates was always a snake, but he was doing things on his own. He was screwing people over, I believe, under his own power and making his own decisions. And that's why the feds went after him. They tried to, file antitrust suits. A lot of these paleo-conservative guys these days, they think they're clever because they're like, antitrust is really good, and we need to break up these big companies who do bad things to us. It's like, antitrust is there to keep those companies in line with the regime. That's why antitrust exists. Antitrust is a club used to break up any dissident companies that would challenge the regime and the entire blob, the revolving door, whatever you want to call it. And so how did Bill Gates, even though Microsoft is a much bigger company now than it was in the 90s, how did Bill Gates avoid that? Well, he joined the club. It's a big club, and they'll let in new members. All Bill Gates had to do was join the club, and then all of a sudden they got off his back. You know why? Because he's one of them now. Now you never hear about Microsoft, being this terrible monopolist or anything like that. You don't hear about that about, Jeff Bezos and Amazon You don't hear that about Google. Why? Because they all learned from Bill Gates' example. You get in line. And frankly, they learned from Steve Jobs' example, because Steve Jobs understood this from the beginning. That's why Apple has always had a sterling reputation. Steve Jobs, long before Apple was ever, really a big company that would have gained the ire of the feds, he ingratiated himself with the regime. He joined the system, and he was a little guy for a while, but they knew him. He was one of their guys, and by the time that Apple got big and Steve Jobs got big, he was already buddy-buddy with them. There was never any conflict there. The regime has never regarded Steve Jobs as a threat, when he was alive, and that continues today, with Apple under Tim Cook. And so when you study the different histories of Apple and Microsoft, these other tech companies that came later realized, hey, there's clearly a winning formula here. And so Twitter was as guilty of that as any of these other tech companies. And now Elon's coming in, and at least on the surface is trying to be a bit more of a maverick. And this is something that we have not seen in tech. Elon is the most hated man in tech since Bill Gates during the Clinton administration. I wasn't alive back then, so I might be getting the ears off a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it was like the mid-90s. That was the height of mainstream Bill Gates skepticism, when the media really didn't like him. Now, of course, they worship him as a god, and if Bill Gates says that your child should be given 80 shots while it's still in the womb, and then ends up stillborn, there's total coincidence. There's no correlation there. Bill Gates is an angel. That's the media these days. But once upon a time, that was not the case. And so Elon, I think, now is a much bigger villain than Gates ever was in the eyes of the media and the regime. So maybe they will start going after Elon for all the trouble, with Tesla. I mean, Tesla is a ridiculous company. I have always been sympathetic to the arguments of the Tesla bears. I have never shorted Tesla. I've never lost money shorting Tesla. I will say that. So I don't put my money where my mouth is, but it's just when I listen to the two sides, I listen to the Tesla bulls versus the Tesla bears. The Tesla bulls sound like a cult to me. The Tesla bears sound very reasonable, like they're grounded in reality and profit and loss and all these things. And so I think that that the media and the regime could neutralize Musk to a great extent by taking out Tesla and assassinating it as a company, which I don't think that would be too tough. I think that Tesla is Musk's soft underbelly. Remember, he made his billions off of PayPal, wasn't it? And then, yes, Tesla has the stock prices grown a lot, and it probably has increased his net worth versus all the money that he's had to put into it. He's probably gotten his investment back in terms of equity, but that equity is very soft if you consider rational stock valuations. I think Tesla's already down more than 50% from its highs, and it can go much lower as far as I'm concerned if the media really pushes it, and if they try to assassinate Tesla, because the narrative's changed a lot now. The media loves to manufacture this idea, everybody has to have an electric car. Well, all these other companies, they're making electric cars now. Are they any good? No, not as far as I'm concerned. I think Teslas are probably still the best electric car, but that doesn't matter. There are other electric cars out there. There are cheaper electric cars. There are more expensive electric cars. Tesla's not going to own that market if already I think half the country, your libs, will refuse to buy Teslas moving forward. Conservatives less inclined to buy Teslas. I mean, I could certainly see them starting to buy more Teslas, just because to own the libs is pretty ironic. The idea of buying an electric car to own the libs, it's not a strategy that I would employ. But I think that there will be a minority of people who do go that route. Nevertheless, though, if you look at the problems with Teslas, which I think are inherent with electric cars, the spontaneous combustion, the Tesla autopilot, just straight up murdering people. These are stories that the media could be covering a lot more than they do now. I mean, think about it, the way that they cover a mass shooting every time. And every time that anyone gets shot with a gun, I mean, they just go after, guns are bad, guns are bad. They could do that with Tesla. Every time that there's a news story, like every week, of someone getting just eviscerated, literally, just left unrecognizable, turned into a pulp or a crisp by their Tesla, the media could go after that and go, oh, look, more blood on Musk. I mean, heck, the Tesla bears do it. I do it. Zero Hedge does it. The mainstream media could easily jump on that, kill Tesla stock price. They could create a narrative about how, VW electric cars are so much better, Ford electric cars are so much better, BMW electric cars are so much better. They could make it whoever they want. They could just say all the electric cars are better than Tesla. Think about it. Tesla right now has a market cap, I think, still bigger than the rest of the auto industry combined. Now, maybe that's not as inflated as it was back at the heights. I mean, maybe Tesla has fallen more relative to the other auto companies, but maybe not. I don't know. It's still, I think, I don't think that, I haven't double checked, but I don't think that Tesla has enough value to be, anywhere near as, the market cap of these other car companies. They're still way, way down. So Tesla, theoretically, if they diminish Tesla's reputation as like the car company of the future, their market cap could soon reflect, and move closer to their competitors, and that would kill Musk. Remember that the money that he used to buy Twitter it came in the form of a loan, and the collateral that he pledged was Tesla stock. So if you kill Tesla stock, I'm not exactly sure the terms of the loan. I don't know if this is public, but Elon might get a margin call. I mean, if you're pledging stock for a loan, I would think margin calls are a part of that. I don't think that, someone would lend Elon, what was it, $44 billion, without that provision in there. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that that's the direction that the media is going to move. That just seems like the smart move. So I'm thankful for what Musk is doing. I'm always skeptical of his intentions. I've never trusted him, in any context, this or any other. But I don't want to, overly paint him as a villain. I mean, certainly he's doing net good right now. He's the greatest ally that we have in the billionaire class. There's no question about it. Musk is doing more good for America, certainly, than Trump, who's, I think, technically still a billionaire. So, with all that said, I didn't even mention cinema, but I'll talk about her tomorrow. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.